Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater. And, there's been always a lot of conversation and discussion and debate surrounding the new Star Wars trilogy, where it's going, where it's been, and just kind of how crazy it's gotten. And I think no matter how hard or diehard of a fan you are of Star Wars, I'm still a huge fan. It's very safe to say that we can see plainly that the franchise is in trouble. It's not in the best place. And there's always going to be a lot of people talking about it, even if some of that are considered rumors, like this one right here, saying rumor J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson Star Wars movies were supposed to be a reboot to the franchise. A new rumor suggests that J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson's The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi movies were supposed to reboot the entire Star Wars franchise. And that, of course, is coming ultimately from this Nerdrotic video right here, where he talks a bit more about that, as well as, I think, updating about the George Lucas licensing fee situation that was going on with Disney and everything else. And I just want to quickly point out on that one, you can get not Boba Fett. You can get Jabba the Hutt plushie and Watto plushies while you're in Galaxy's Edge. So if those are from potentially prequel trilogy, which is the difference between original trilogy, so something to consider on that front. But again, these are just rumors, and rumors have to be taken with a grain of salt. And this one here, oh, it's a doozy. So talking about Rian Johnson, it says Rian was not just randomly writing a story, nor was JJ. JJ's job was to create an in-canon reboot like the 2009 Star Trek and introduce the new characters. Rian's job was to kill off the originals, and then you were supposed to not notice it was rebooted. Each was given the outline to make it and what the points were. So now you know why. Disney did not want to pay a license fee, and by the end of it, it all looked different and was a new copyright under the old name. They even changed the Falcon to be different, but the orders was in to leave nothing original. Now, that is something to consider. Okay, so that's a bit of a fascinating thing here. So Rian Johnson, good old Roundhead Johnson, Ruin Johnson, was brought in to ultimately eviscerate the franchise. He was going to eviscerate what we know our original canon, eviscerate it all. So then Colin Trevorrow could come in for the third movie and ultimately lead in with a new take, a new reboot. Right. And this is coming. I don't know how much of that I believe, to be fair with you. And I say this because J.J. Abrams has talked about having a plan before. Daisy Ridley confirmed that there was an arc. There was an outline written for the next two films, that Rian Johnson didn't follow that. We know this. So to sit there and say that they were tasked by Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy to kind of break down and destroy this franchise seems like a huge stretch, a huge leap of faith, and a huge leap of logic, considering the fact that JJ used the mystery box technique in order to create a movie that was basically a retread of A New Hope that was bathed 100% in nostalgia. Rian Johnson was like the exact opposite of that, where there was very little nostalgia. Never mind the fact, just if we're talking about the whole of trying to like find a way to do new things. There's also some like C-3PO's arm was red in The Force Awakens, but it was fixed in The Last Jedi, right? So it's kind of like little things like that don't really seem to add up. Now, the article does go on to say here, there's just this quick. That was always the plan. After the reaction to The Last Jedi, the decision was made to bring in JJ to fix the plan he laid out and throw Rian under the bus. This is why they said Rian might get his own trilogy. They just didn't expect the backlash to be as toxic as it was, and consequently, Solo flopped. And that's true. Consequently, Solo did flop. It's a good movie, but it flopped. It didn't do very well, and that had a lot to do with the backlash to The Last Jedi. So, we've all kind of known for a long time that Rian Johnson really did screw the pooch with The Last Jedi. And ever since then, he's kind of had this chip on his shoulder about it. He's not happy about the response to the film. And he's kind of gone out of his way to be a jerk to fans, which has only made it worse, which is one of the reasons why people were excited to bring J.J. Abrams back in. Rian Johnson is the fall guy for Star Wars right now. Whether it's warranted or not, I'm going to leave that entirely to you, but that's essentially where it's at right now. And the way I personally view it is that he made a bad movie, and he adapted or he wrote his script based off of The Force Awakens script, which for some reason he didn't interpret the nostalgia and what Kasdan was working on and what JJ was going for, and not understanding the fantasy, not understanding the lore, the legacy. And he just kind of treated it like it was like his own personal sci-fi movie just underneath the Star Wars name. Kind of like how Paul Feig wanted to subvert expectations of Ghostbusters 2016 by just taking the name, and then that's really about it. But Johnson here has actually said, when talking about the storytelling process, he says that's what's been really cool about the storytelling process. There's definitely this idea that we know it's a 3-movie arc. We know that the first film's an introduction, the second movie is training, means challenging the characters. The third is where they all come together and you have to resolve everything. But I was truly able to write this script without basis to tag and without a big outline on the wall. That meant I could react to what I felt from The Force Awakens and what I wanted to see. I could make this movie personal. I could also just take these characters where it felt right and most interesting to take them. I think part of the reason why this movie feels like it goes to some unexpected places with the characters is that we had that freedom. If it had all been planned out and written down beforehand, it might have felt like a little more calculated, I suppose. But there's nothing wrong with having a plan. There's nothing wrong with pre-planning everything. Again, J.J. Abrams here had a plan. He had a plan. He had an arc. He knew him and Lawrence Kasdan had worked out this arc. They knew what they wanted to do with it. And even if Kasdan wasn't going to be writing it anymore, despite what you may think of the script for Force Awakens and the script for Solo, whatever, he's been around. He knows Star Wars. He knows what makes it good. And JJ, I think, also has that kind of fanciful nature about him. Johnson never did. Johnson never looked at The Last Jedi like it was going to be a Star Wars movie. J.J. Abrams did. Whether you like The Force Awakens or not, he did treat it like it was Star Wars. Johnson didn't. In fact, when it comes to talking about the scripting process, JJ says, but without getting into the weeds on episode 8, that was a story that Rian wrote and was telling based on 7 before we met. Like I said, he read the script for 7, I think, and was right, because they already know that he started writing episode 8 before they finished episode 7. Means he got the script. So that's what he's working on. Anyway, so he was taking the thing in another direction. So we had to respond to episode 8. So our movie was not just following what we had started, it was following what we had started and then what had been, I love the word here, advanced by someone else, because that's a load of crap. It's definitely derailed. So there's that. And finally, it was resolving 9 movies. While there are some big threads or some threads of larger ideas and some big picture things that had been conceived decades ago, and a lot of ideas that Lawrence Kasdan and I had when we were doing episode 7, the lack of absolute inevitability, the lack of a complete structure for this thing, given the way that it was being run, was an enormous challenge. Which, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's an enormous challenge. It's Star Wars, right? It's not like going into Star Trek in 2009 and having the ability to reboot it based upon what you're, just kind of having the main characters and that's that. You had a whole new timeline and the Kelvin timeline came out of it. You don't get that here. This isn't Bryan Singer directing Superman Returns, which is Superman 2.5. This is not that at all. You don't get to deviate the timeline. This is a continuation, so it was a bit different of a situation. But I think he still knew what he wanted to do for this particular trilogy, and Johnson didn't. However, when it comes to the idea that this was all kind of willy-nilly and there was no real plan, Adam Driver here actually kind of disagrees. In a quote, he says, an overall arc was very, not vague, the opposite. It was very clear. There was an end in sight from the very beginning. The details obviously hadn't been worked out, but we had talked about the very thing that we've been working towards with this last one. And if you think that when it comes to working on a movie, these people don't talk about what they want to do for the next one, they're spending, 4 to 6 months on set with each other, working on this thing, very close proximity, always discussing, always collaborating, always expanding. Then you go into the post-production process and they're still working on ideas. And oftentimes actors have a lot of process that goes into it. And that does get brought in because these become their characters that they are the ones that are portraying. So yeah, there's a lot of collaboration that goes into the story elements of this. But when it came to, let's say, The Last Jedi, I don't think a lot of people had that, mostly because there was no collaboration with Rian Johnson on the sequel, right? Where they all had talked with JJ, they knew where it wanted to go. Johnson was off in the corner with no friends, kind of seems like normal being that way. But anyway, when it comes to Colin Trevorrow, right, why he left episode 9, there's always been the speculation, but he does have this one quote here that I think does kind of serve in to this overall situation. Now he says, I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to affect the way fans see these films. When we were kids, these movies came to us from far away. They were a gift. And the more we talk about how they're made, the more it reveals that they're just movies. But they're not just movies. They're more than that. Beyond that, I've got the opportunity to tell a story that's a celebration of everything I believe in. I got to tell it to George Lucas. I got to tell it to Luke Skywalker. And those experiences I will cherish for the rest of my life. And think about that. He had a plan. He had a script. He had a story that was based off of what JJ had done. I don't think we can disagree on that front at all, right? It was clearly based on what JJ had done. And by the time he gets to the end of, they're finishing up post-production on The Last Jedi, and everything now is shifted, everything now is changed. He says, I got to tell my story to Luke Skywalker, meaning Luke was going to be in it, which means that in JJ's story, Luke was never going to die. Luke was never going to be a Force ghost. Because I don't think either George or Mark Hamill would approve of that, to be honest with you. So that gives us a little bit of a hint, a little bit of an idea of how Rian Johnson approached this without a care in the world, without giving much of a crap. And that's the unfortunate thing here. He screwed it over 100%. And now we get these ridiculous rumors about how, really, no, it's Kathleen Kennedy's fault. It's Iger's fault. They brought these filmmakers in to destroy the franchise. I mean, come on. No one, I think if you know anything about how these movies are made, anything about how movies are made or studios are run, this is the most, it's an attempt at a red pill, but it's so lame. It's so lame. And look, I know Nerdrotic is running the rumor because he got told the rumor, and that's fine. I'm responding to that rumor. But I mean, I don't think anyone who knows anything about the industry could even remotely believe that that's real. But unfortunately, where we are right now, there's going to be so many channels that are going to run with this as being real, run with this as being as the gospel. Oh, an insider said. No, it's not real. It's not real. And now that the more I hear about this and I hear about the Lucas licensing thing, I just don't think that's real either. I'm sorry. I just don't. I know people out there hate Disney and they want to see Disney go down and think Disney's gotten all too powerful. And I get that. And I'm with you. But Occam's razor suggests the simplest explanation is often the truest. These things have gotten so far into tinfoil territory that they're just laughable now. So here's where we are with that one. But hey, you can think differently than me. That's entirely okay. I do want to hear your thoughts. I do want to hear your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. Or you guys can head on over to facebook.com/groups/3buck theater and let me know there what you think. That way we can have ourselves a good conversation there. And I will talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day. Thanks for watching, and peace out.